June 25th, 2024. And this is the 11th episode of our I Bought a Bookstore, my I Bought a Bookstore series. And it's June, so it's almost the end of June. We opened the store in January. So it's been almost a full 6 months of being open. I have a bit of a cold still, lingering cold, so bear with me. But we have been open since January. We opened the very first weekend of January. And when we first opened, we started by being open on Friday and Saturday each week. And then we did that for about 3 months or so. And we found out that Fridays were super slow. We never really had a good Friday. And then Saturdays were much better in general. And when there was an event down here, which is a downtown area, when there was an event, we did even better, especially the art walk. And we had Chinese New Year, which brought a ton of people. Some other events. There's a company that puts on monthly events twice a month. And when those happen, it brings in some more people, more foot traffic down here, basically. So we figured that out. And then we switched to only being open very briefly 2 Saturdays a month. And then we decided, you know what, looking at the numbers again, let's be open every Saturday because we really need to make enough money to pay for our employee at a bare minimum. We're not even talking about paying for the rent, which is not that expensive. But we just want to pay for the employee. And that's what we settled on. And we've been doing for a couple of months now, is being open every Saturday. Just open 6 hours, basically. They stay open a little later if it's busy. There's a lot of people, which is what happens on some Saturdays. If there's a lot of people outside walking around, walking by, coming in, then it's worth it staying open a little bit longer, maybe even opening slightly earlier, depending on what's going on. So that's what we've settled on for now. And it's been working in terms of getting enough people in the store to buy enough books and bringing enough money to pay for our employee. And so that's what it's been, is just kind of figuring out the best days, best times to be open. Really, the best times are later in the day. We tried lunch a few times. That didn't make a difference. So Saturday is sort of the day. And that's where we're going to build the business, this location from, is Saturdays going forward. I think it's because I've seen this before in my other location, which is not even like this one, a traditional retail area or space. I've seen, building that, which is essentially a commercial building of small warehouses, 800 square foot warehouses. And over the years, I've had that place for 4.5 plus years now. And I realized that it just takes time for people to find you. If you have good stuff, they'll come back. And that's what's happened over there. And that's what we're seeing here. Another thing we do is we collect people's names and emails to add to our newsletter to create repeat business. And so they know what's going on at both locations. That's been really good as well to grow that. And more people are opening the email and that type of thing. So that's always good. But it really comes down to being patient, especially in a location like this that does not have a ton of just natural foot traffic coming by. There's a few restaurants, like we are on this side at the corner. There's a Jamaican restaurant here. A couple doors down, there is a restaurant that is like a bar and grill kind of a deal. And that one has been there a long time. The Jamaican restaurants have been moved to this location from another location it's probably been like almost the whole time we've been here, not quite, or the whole time that I've had the space. Before it was a Mexican restaurant, I believe. So there's some restaurants that bring some people down, but aside from that, that's really it right here. There's another restaurant across the street, a little bit down. There's what's called the Fox Theater, which is an old 100-plus-year-old theater that doesn't really bring people. There's a concert venue that occasionally has concerts, but it's not really the right crowd. So that's been, if you are willing to put out the money and lease a space in a really high foot traffic area, then you're instantly going to get lots of people coming in, right? Lots of people, especially a bookstore that's kind of quaint, or it's a quaint idea. There's not very many used local bookstores around in general, depending on where you live, of course, but in general. So, when that type of place opens, and people tend to go in, check it out, and you'll probably get some supporters. And that's what we found is people like to browse a bookstore. And so that's been the big challenge, is getting enough people to come in. And then it just takes time to build the repeat customers, get the word out that we're open, because it was closed for so long, for like 3.5 years, while it had been open before for 12 years as a bookstore. And the other thing is one of the reasons why I didn't open it for so long is because I hadn't gone through all the inventory. Well, number one, it was because I had to clean up the space. Number two, which took time and money, like the painting. Like, look at all the walls that are painted now, the same color. They were black and red, believe it or not. Before, it was a bit of a mess. The front here had this giant iron gate that looked so ugly, and we had that removed. We upgraded the electricity, and we got a light on the outside. Anyway, we did all this different stuff, which took time, as well as, which I've mentioned before, is pulling up these old dirty rugs, opening the space up by removing a bunch of bookshelves here. And so it's opened it up. So all of that as well. But one of the big parts is that I hadn't gone through and I still haven't gone through all of the inventory that's on the shelves. So that's a big part of this, where I have gone through this entire shelf, and now I'm moving on to this one, to the next one here, which is like cookbooks, health, women's focus. There's lots of different stuff. And there's a whole other wall there of nonfiction, and then the rest of it, different, there's fiction that starts there, and and there's kids books there, and there's classics. Then it moves all the way down here with all different types of fiction, including lots of sci-fi and fantasy, mystery, thrillers, all that stuff. So that was another hurdle, is going through all of the books, and I haven't done that yet, but I continue to do it. And in the meantime, we continue to add new inventory, which has really helped by freshening up some of the inventory. So ideally, once I've gone through everything, I'm thinning out the shelves, getting rid of stuff that's not really likely to sell, and finding stuff that I can sell online. I found something a book that I sold on Amazon, I flipped really quickly, merchant fulfilled, for $65. It was just sitting up there on one of the shelves, listed it for very little money. I found lots and lots of books, collectible, first edition, signed, etc., first printings, that I have been able to list on eBay and sell for good money. So that's another reason why I want to go through it. But all of this stuff, it's like new. All these books are new to the shelves. As week by week, we put out new books in the different categories. So that's been helpful. So it's really, with a location, your inventory, and patience. That's what we found. And so I think, it's just going to be doing Saturdays, continuing to go through the inventory, adding better and newer books, freshening up the inventory, and being patient and waiting, just building up a repeat customer base and people finding out about us and that kind of thing, in order for us to make enough money to pay for the space. At this location, I really think it's just going to take time, plus better inventory. We have some great inventory, don't get me wrong. The stuff that was already here, there's a lot of great stuff. But adding newer books, different types of genres, different types of authors is really helping as well. That people see that, they're adding new inventory, they're getting some cool stuff, whether it's fiction titles or nonfiction titles, books for adults or kids. So, we're battling against being at this location that does not have tons of natural traffic. Excuse me. And that's too bad. Like, if there was a business that brought people down here, pretty much every day, and then we would have traffic and we could be open more often. And the other challenge is that having to pay someone to be here, because I have the other location, means that we have to be making money, otherwise I'm paying for that salary, paying for that other person's wage through money that's not being made in the store. So that's why we had to cut back our hours. And that's part of having a business, is figuring that stuff out. So of course I'd love to be open, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, but If I'm not, if it's not me working here, then I'm having to pay someone, 25, 30, 35 hours a week. And that's just adds up to be a lot of money when when you don't have enough traffic. If I was in another area that I'd love to be in, where this type of space would probably cost, 5 times what it is here, if not more. If I'm willing to put out 3 to 5 grand a month just on the rent, not even new inventory, not even paying an employee to be here. No, thinking that, well, I'm going to get in hundreds and hundreds, if not more, people per day. That's that you got to have confidence that what you're selling is going to sell really well. But the rent here is pretty inexpensive. But there's drawbacks, right? The area. So those are things to think about if you're considering opening a local business, whether it's a bookstore or not. I think a bookstore can do really well in certain areas, especially if there's no used bookstore around. People still love to read. People love to browse and see what you have, and also find out what people are looking for, right? If you find people are looking for classics, if you find people are looking for the latest science fiction, whatever it is, books that are hot online on social media, just figure that out and try to get those books. You can also have a bookstore that just sells a certain genre, but I think that's tough to do unless you have a source for a consistent flow of certain genre. Like if you're only going to be science, sci-fi, and fantasy novels, if you're only going to do collectible books, whatever it is, then you need to have a big enough inventory. But for now, we're just going to kind of appeal to a large audience and try to niche down in certain niches and get better collections of certain types of books. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Stay tuned as we continue to evolve and figure out how to make this space work.